This screencast provides you with an overview of the digestive system. You can find information on the digestive system in Chapter 14 of your textbook. This screencast was designed to achieve the following objectives: define a nutrient, describe the function of the digestive system, briefly describe the 5 essential activities of the digestive system, describe the basic anatomy of the digestive system, describe the structure and function of the layers of the gastrointestinal tract, describe the peritoneum, and lastly, contrast peristalsis and segmentation. If you recall from Chapter 1, nutrients are a survival need. The human body must acquire nutrients in order to maintain life. A simple definition of a nutrient is as follows. They are molecules used by the body in order for the body to grow, in order to maintain the body, replacing dead cells, and in order to repair damage to the body. You can place growth, maintenance, and repair under the umbrella of metabolism, and therefore say that nutrients are necessary for metabolism. Your book goes into great depth as to what the different types of nutrients are. At this time, I will quickly list them and give very brief descriptions of them. Carbohydrates are a type of nutrient. They include sugars and starches. They are mainly used by the body as a source of energy. Recall that proteins, which are composed of amino acids, make up more than half of the dry matter of the body. Many proteins serving as structural components of cells and extracellular substances, and proteins also serve as functional components such as hemoglobin and hormones. Lipids, which include the triglycerides, phospholipids, and steroids, have various functions in the body, some serving as structural components of the plasma membrane, others serving as hormones, and still others serving as a source of energy. Vitamins are not required by the body in large concentrations, but they are absolutely essential in order for enzymes to work correctly. Minerals, like vitamins, aren't required in large quantities, but play vital roles in allowing enzymes to work correctly. Some minerals also function as structural components of the body. Calcium and phosphorus, for example, are major components of bones. Lastly, water is a nutrient. Recall that the most abundant substance in the body is water. All of the chemical reactions of the body occur in water, and water can also participate in chemical reactions in the body. So, what are the sources of these nutrients which the body must have in order to maintain life? We obtain the nutrients that we need from other organisms. Since other organisms require the same type of molecules, that is, the same nutrients that we require, we kill them, we process them, we chop them up into pieces small enough to fit on our plates, and then we season them and add various substances to make them palatable. So eventually we convert those living organisms into what we call food. It is the function of the digestive system to ingest the food, to then mechanically and chemically digest or break that food down, and then absorb the nutrients released by the digestive food into the bloodstream, supplying the body with the nutrients that are needed for life. In order for the digestive system to accomplish its function of providing the body with the nutrients that are needed to support life, what are the essential activities that must be performed by the digestive system? Well, first, food must be ingested or taken in to the GI tract, and this occurs in the mouth as lips, teeth, and tongue bring food into the GI tract. That food then has to be moved through the digestive system, specifically through the gastrointestinal tract. Different parts of the GI tract are specialized to perform different functions. Digestion must occur. Digestion occurs in the form of both mechanical digestion, where substances are physically broken down into smaller substances, and chemical digestion, where bonds are broken and large molecules are broken down or digested into smaller molecules. After digestion occurs and molecules are small enough to be transported into the blood or the lymphatic system, absorption occurs as substances leave the lumen, cross the walls of the GI tract, and enter the blood. And then finally, not all of the food or substances that are taken into the GI tract can be digested and absorbed. That which cannot be digested must be eliminated by the process of defecation. So these are the 5 essential activities of the digestive system. The digestive system consists of 2 major types of organs. The organs of the gastrointestinal tract or GI tract on the right, and accessory organs which are shown on the left of this figure. The gastrointestinal tract or GI tract consists of a muscular tube that extends from the mouth or oral cavity all the way to the anus, or as I like to say, from rooter to tutor. The accessory organs shown on the left may or may not come in direct contact with food. The accessory organs are not a part of the GI tract proper. Nevertheless, they play very important roles in the digestive system. The salivary glands, teeth, and tongue are accessory organs of the oral cavity, and the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas are extremely important accessory organs in the abdominal cavity. With the exception of the oral cavity, the entire gastrointestinal tract is composed of 4 basic layers or tunics. These are, starting with at the lumen and moving outward, the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis externa, and the serosa. Let's briefly discuss each of these layers, starting with the mucosa. First, let's talk about the mucosa. So the mucosa is the innermost layer of the GI tract. It is an epithelial membrane, meaning that it consists of a layer of surface epithelium supported by a deeper layer of connective tissue, areolar tissue specifically known as the lamina propria. The surface epithelia are in contact with the lumen. The cells of the surface epithelium in the mouth, pharynx, and esophagus, as well as the anus, are stratified squamous cells. In the stomach, small and large intestine, the cells are simple columnar. There are also numerous goblet cells, specialized cells which produce mucus to lubricate the GI tract for ease of movement of substances through the GI tract and also for protection of the GI tract. There's also a small smooth muscle layer which contracts and throws the lining of the mucosa into folds. The mucosa serves as a barrier for microorganisms in the lumen, preventing them from accessing deeper tissues of the GI tract as well as the blood. The mucosa is responsible for the release of numerous digestive enzymes to support digestion and also participates in the absorption of nutrients from the lumen and eventually into the bloodstream. Deep to the mucosa is the submucosa. The submucosa consists of connective tissue. There are numerous blood vessels and lymphatic vessels that are embedded in the connective tissue, and they absorb nutrients that are transported by cells of the mucosa from the lumen. There are also numerous glands in the submucosa which secrete substances into the lumen to support digestion. Lastly, there are numerous networks of nerves in the submucosa that control the activity of the GI tract. Moving from the submucosa outward, the next layer is the muscularis externa. The muscularis externa is responsible for the movement of substances through the GI tract. It contains two layers of smooth muscles, an inner circular layer, and an outer longitudinal layer. The mouth, pharynx, and anus also contain skeletal muscles. And like the submucosa, there are a network of nerves for control of the activity of the GI tract found in the muscularis externa as well. Let's now look at the final layer of the GI tract, the serosa. The serosa is the outermost layer or tunic of the GI tract. It consists of a layer of simple squamous epithelial cells supported by a deeper layer of areolar tissue. Its function is to protect the outer surface of the GI tract. It is also called the visceral peritoneum. Notice that there are extensions of the serosa that envelop blood vessels and nerves that extend from the GI tract. These mesenteries, as they are called, not only protect these blood vessels and nerves that serve the GI tract, but they also extend to the walls of the abdominal cavity and help anchor the GI tract in place. Let's talk more now about the peritoneum. In order for you to understand the peritoneum, what it is, what its function is, we need to go back to chapter 5 when I described serous membranes. Serous membranes, if you recall, are membranes that line body cavities that are closed to the external environment, and they also cover the organs in those body cavities. So serous membranes line the thoracic cavity. They also line the abdominal cavity. If you recall, serous membranes consist of a surface layer of simple squamous epithelium and an underlining layer of areolar connective tissue. So in trying to have you understand the two layers of the serous membranes and how they relate to one another and the organs that they surround, I told you to imagine your fist is an organ. Now take that fist and push it into a partially inflated balloon, such that one side of the balloon, the part in contact with your fist, is almost touching the other side of the balloon. The portion of the balloon that was in contact with your fist would be the visceral layer, that is, the layer that is in contact with your fist as an organ, would be the visceral layer, identified by the red arrow, and the other side of the balloon, represented by the green arrow, would be the parietal layer. So the peritoneum is simply the serous membranes of the abdominal cavity. The visceral peritoneum surrounds the GI tract and other organs of the abdominal cavity and are in contact with those organs, and the parietal peritoneum lines the wall of the abdominal cavity. So going back to this figure showing the serosa is the visceral peritoneum. It extends to the walls of the abdominal cavity as mesentery, and there it makes contact with the parietal peritoneum, which lines the abdominal cavity. This figure from your book gives a nice illustration of the peritoneum. Here we're looking at a sagittal section of the abdominal cavity. The visceral peritoneum is shown in blue. Notice that the visceral peritoneum covers almost all of the organs of the abdominal cavity. The parietal peritoneum, shown in orange, lines the abdominal cavity. The space between the visceral peritoneum and the parietal peritoneum is called the peritoneal cavity. And almost all of the organs of the digestive system are found within the peritoneal cavity. However, notice that there are a few which lie behind the peritoneal cavity, or what's called retroperitoneal, and those include the pancreas and portions of the small intestine, such as a portion of the duodenum. I would like to elaborate briefly on GI tract motility because there are two different types. Peristalsis is wave-like smooth muscle contraction that serves to move the contents down the GI tract. This figure illustrates how a bolus of food is moved away from the mouth and toward the anus by peristalsis. Notice that contraction behind the food particle propels it forward. This movement is similar to how one might move toothpaste through a toothpaste tube toward its opening. The second type of GI tract motility is segmentation. The function of segmentation is not to move substances down or through the GI tract, but instead to mix the contents of the lumen. It is important that digestive enzymes be properly mixed with substances derived from food in order for chemical digestion to occur, and it is segmentation that helps ensure that that occurs. Now let's review the objectives of this screencast. Define a nutrient, describe the function of the digestive system, briefly describe the 5 essential activities of the digestive system, describe the basic anatomy of the digestive system, describe the structure and function of the layers of the gastrointestinal tract, describe the peritoneum, and lastly, contrast peristalsis and segmentation. The next screencast will discuss the mouth, pharynx, and esophagus.